if me as a household, many years, we've heard from government officials, we've heard from finance experts that, and they use that term, cut your coat according to your size. You don't spend the money you don't have. How is it difficult for a government to understand that basic principle that if me, a household, I will not spend what I don't have? Why is it difficult for the government to do so? But you always create what you call the deficit, huge enough that you have to also go back and borrow to refinance a maturing debt that is existing.
Government is sometimes like a household. When you have peers, right? You have peers, and they are doing things you cannot do, and yesterday you want to impress. Your income may not be able to sustain, let's say a car may not be able to sustain, and you go into those kind of things. I'm not saying that government seeks these decisions deliberately, but some households may not be. Or you may also, like a household, you may decide that, you are okay, you are able to pay for the vehicle, and then that loses the job. It becomes difficult, right? Because then it's only one income from mom working overtime and all that. Often with governments, in our current environment, some of it may come from, winning power, and overpromising. And therefore, you promise to do things beyond the capability, of the income that is coming in from GRA. And if you come to power, you cannot get GRA to rev up the revenue, right? Then the past loan plus the present one to meet the expenditure promises and things, right, begins to create that kind of problem, And the problem is that often the problem is very simple. The deficit widens because if GRA's income, the revenue is bringing is 100 and expenditure is 110, and the 10 being what we need to repay loans and interest, which we're able to cover this. GRA may be able to raise that for 210, right, to cover all of this. And then when you borrow, right, you make sure that if you borrow, you repay, so that your repayment remains around the 10, because the capability of GRA is between 100 and 110, right? If you go beyond 220, 230, you are getting into trouble.
Okay.
Because there's additional 10, 20, 30, which is coming as a result of expanding expenditure. Okay. Which you may not be able to pay. Okay. And at that point, just like your neighbor calling, knocking on the door at dawn, because he wants to make sure he catches you before you go to work to collect the money, the amount that is owed. Our creditors also begin to knock on the door. But it's fatal for a country to default, because if you just as it's fatal. I said the last time that if you borrow from your neighbor to take your kid to school and you don't pay, you can't go back again to borrow a second time, and the child may be at home, right?
Sure.
Or the neighbor may come and embarrass you with the same thing. So when we say there's consequence for defaulting in paying, it applies to governments. So if the government, extends itself, spends more than it's capable of repaying, especially interest and the debt component, or it may end up owing salaries.